Having built in survival for the longest time now, it's finally time for something new. Since at the end of the day, survival has its limitations. So this is Creative, a place with unlimited resources and possibilities in regards to building, with a bunch of tools like Axiom or World Edit that make the building process way more comfortable. So to experience what would be truly possible in building without any limitations, we're gonna go above and beyond with our first ever creative build. And there's probably no better build to recreate than our starter islands. So today we're gonna take the same concept and see what could have been without any limitations. So starting off, to create a sense of scaling, I want to put down a circle of a diameter of 51 blocks, which we're going to use for the main tower as a base, after we're done with the islands. This won't just be useful for later, but especially now, to see how large we'll have to go with the island group. Since we're having an ocean flat world with only water and a flat ground as a canvas, I'm starting off by raising the terrain with the elevation tool. In this phase, I'm mostly trying to get the scaling and main idea down, so pretty much we're playing around with how many islands we want, how big each are gonna be, and what the rough layout will be. When terraforming with Axiom, I tend to use larger brush sizes, especially in the beginning. Basically just going smaller and smaller with time, putting the rough shapes out first and then adjusting them later on. To create the organic shapes that I usually make when building islands, as you can see here, I'm typically using a combination of tools, which usually consist of the elevation tool with all the different modes, the melt tool, smooth tool, shape tool, to sometimes create some more stylized, cartoony shapes, for rocks for example, as well as the rock tool to create overhangs for cliff sides mostly. Now on their own, they're not as crazy obviously, but the combination of certain tools can create some quite unique and very nice shapes. I'm usually putting down a little too much volume at first, and then I'll carve into the terrain that we just put down. So basically, instead of making it perfect or great with our first try, we just make it exist first and make it good after. I mean, there's no tool named perfect shape, so we need multiple tools and a bunch of patience to create our desired shaping. Then I just go over the entire terrain and apply what we just yapped about to pretty much every single spot, trying to create some more or less unique shapes here and there, but also some more flat and boring areas to create some balance. And while designing this on stream, a friend of mine, Omofish, which you can find in the video description, had an idea to put a hole into the ocean, or some kind of pit, which I decided to add in the end over here. And with the rough idea of the terrain in place and the shaping done, it's time to go ahead and actually paint it and put some color into this world. In terms of color and terrain, I've recently started using Autoshade to put down the rough coloring with a custom gradient, from deep shade to andesite, to get the shadows and midtones down. So selecting parts of the terrain, not all of it, to prevent the game from crashing, we're first putting down the stone gradient, and later put all the grass and dirt on top, and whatever specific coloring we want. For Autoshade, I usually use multiple custom positions and often play around with the percentages of the gradient, because I barely get it right the first try. After using Autoshade, we gotta go ahead and use the paint tool with a tool mask. I keep it pretty simple here and just use above equals air to be able to paint just the surface blocks that face the sky, so we don't have multiple grass blocks above each other. And then it's pretty much just painting, leaving some steeper parts and areas more rocky and not covering them with grass or dirt. It's pretty much just finding a balance between rocks and grass that works. Some terrains might be flatter and others might be more rocky. There's no really right or wrong, just whatever you're going for. After adding all the grass, I usually tend to do the same underwater with mud, to make the water parts darker and look deeper, which doesn't really take too much effort, but it definitely benefits the overall look of the terrain. And after all the bulky stuff is done, we gotta go over the entire terrain to make more specific changes, such as different rock colors and adjustments to the shading, for which I add quite some color in this case here. There's a bunch of different blocks you can use in this phase, and it just really depends on what kind of terrain that you're doing. I usually keep it pretty simple though, and don't add too many different rock colors and specific blocks. And the same thing goes for the surface or the grassy, dirty areas. I just stay in the brownish, greenish tones and add some gravel here and there. And then we're pretty much done with the rough terrain design. Basically just staying in the same style as we did for the starter area, and I feel like it actually turned out quite nice so far. Putting the terrain aside for now, it's time to go ahead and start with probably the most important part now. which is sketching out the buildings, or the build. So starting off, we're gonna put down a little block and then use the shape tool to create the circle foundation for our main tower in the middle of this island here. If you are questioning why everything will be blue in a minute, I just found myself using blue wool to easily differentiate between the terrain and the buildings and the terrain. It's just easier. Increasing the outline of the circle by one block allows us to use this mirror tool, which I just use sort of to stretch the tower to my desired height. There's different options though, like using the shape tool to create cylinders from the start, but I feel like I'm more flexible with the smear tool and it's easier to make adjustments. After adjusting the height to my liking, I set up the symmetry tool and then, for this tower, create some columns, not just as support pillars to hold all the weight, but mainly because they just make it look way better. And they add depth, just like little arches and overhangs here and there, which I tend to add as well. With the rough base for the main tower in place now, we gotta sketch out all the other buildings. Since this build is based on our starter area, I'm mainly planning on adding a couple of towers connected by bridges. For now, we're just trying to get down simple shapes though, nothing too complicated. Creating the silhouette and foundation for the build, so no detailing, just putting down rough shapes and the main idea. Especially in this phase, you just want to get the larger shapes down and get the proportions right, because they're the fundamentals of every build, and if the fundamentals are off, your entire build will be off. Adding another building over here, I kind of want to add some sort of mini Colosseum, or arena, as we had on our second starter island in the survival world. Making today's build somewhat ruined again, I want to add one or maybe even two ruined parts of the Colosseum around this island here. So we'll have to select a part of the Colosseum over here and then copy it and paste it over here in this area maybe. That should be fine, I guess. I mean, looking at it, it doesn't look too bad, and if we don't like it later, we can still change it. Leaving this behind for now though, we need to add another few buildings. Some are towers and bridges here and there. Basically just figuring out how it's gonna look like in the end, more or less, with only rough shapes. And once the larger parts are in place, we can slowly start going smaller and smaller until we get to the detailing. Quickly getting the last few puzzle pieces together with a proper entrance, and then it's time to rework all the different towers and bridges and basically refining them all. Creating some sharper edges and adding some lines here and there, just overall actually designing the buildings and making them not look like a blob. But yeah, for now it's just adding some simple overhangs, columns and pillars, windows and basic arches and all those kind of things. But for now we're still keeping it pretty simple. And even though it's just blue wool, it's slowly but surely starting to take shape, and I think you can see the direction I'm trying to go for. And with the last few bits sketched out, we can slowly move over to the coloring part of the buildings. So quickly selecting all the building parts, and then I'm just quickly gonna auto shade it to put down some different blocks. I personally don't really rely on auto shade too much for buildings, because most of the times I end up manually shading and texturing the builds in the end. Partially because I haven't found a method that works with auto shade, but overall I'd still say it's just not as reliable. Which is also why I will have to spend the next couple of hours doing the basic texturing of the builds by hand, or with the paint tool, at least. Using almost the same block palette from our small starter base, we're going from top to bottom with direct to deep shade tiles. Starting off, I'm just staying in the grayish color scheme, and as we go further into detailing, I'll be making it more overgrown and throwing some green here and there as well as some other blocks. While still making some little adjustments like destroying the bridge over here, as you can see, as well as adding some ruined parts in the surroundings. Basically just trying to establish a ruins theme more and more. If you were wondering why we're going from light at the top to dark at the bottom, there's a few reasons, but the main one is that distant objects appear lighter in value due to light scattering, mainly caused by particles in the air like dust and other molecules. So if you ever looked at mountains from a distance, you can notice that the further they're away, the lighter and bluer they appear. And in terms of Minecraft or any other sort of art, this key component of atmospheric perspective can be used to make things appear farther away and larger. In the end, it makes it just a bit more immersive and looks quite nice in my opinion. Hours of texturing later, there's still plenty to do though. Gotta fix a couple of things here and there, add some stuff, correct some things. But after all that, it's finally, slowly but surely starting to look like an actual build now, doesn't it? I mean, patience is key and we're nowhere near done, but it is starting to look like something, while we haven't even added any detailing yet. Which kind of brings us to the next part, the detailing, who would have guessed. I mean, for now, the mossification, because there's no green yet, and we do want to make it overgrown, so it is time to change that and put some moss and leaves down, while creating a little sample of how the build is supposed to look like with detailing and decoration in the end. With this little Colosseum building that we have here, which is supposed to be some kind of memorial or place of faith, with the ancient statue in the middle over here. After mostly finishing this building part, I went ahead and added the moss and leaves to all the other parts of the build, while simultaneously changing and fixing some parts of the texturing, mainly adjusting it to the newly added moss and leaves by using mossy cobblestone and stone bricks around the mossy areas. One of my favorite things to add in this stage to make the build feel more overgrown are hanging vines made out of leaves, as you've seen earlier around the bridges. I mean, they just make it look way more whimsy and it just fits perfectly into our theme. And with the last few bits of moss in place, we're done with the rough mossification at least. I mean, we probably still have to adjust some of it and add some more, but that's for later, because right now there's something else bothering me, which is the terrain. There's no grass yet, and I can't wait any longer to be honest, so we gotta change that, because foliage goes a long way. So quickly creating a tool mask to only place grass and bushes on the right blocks, we're gonna use the noise brush to add some grass, bushes and fern, pretty much everywhere. And that already changes so damn much. The difference that the grass does is genuinely insane. And with that out of the way, it's time to start on the interiors and take care of the different towers individually, because there's still quite a lot to do, especially interior wise, as some of you guys know. It takes a lot of time, and even more when you have so many interiors to do. It's like any other task, we just gotta check them off step by step, interior by interior. And with one ruined tower done, we're gonna go on to the next one. Depending on the size of the tower and how much space we have, the interior changes as well. If we got more space, we can do something more specific, and in some cases when there's not too much space, we're just gonna do some basic interiors. Storage, for example, some decorations and just some small things. In this room, for example, I went with a little graffiti, some shelves for storage and a desk, making it the workplace for a potential artist who's in charge of the decoration in this build. And just like on the outside, I want to make the inside decently overgrown as well. So you will be able to find a bunch of plants and leaves here and there. And with a few small interiors done, I felt confident enough getting to the big tower. But as you can see, some texturing inside still had to be done. That out of the way, I decided to try and turn our main tower into a library, keeping the middle part very open to make the scaling and size of this tower feel overwhelming in a way. Adding a little graffiti again, that's becoming a habit at that point, to be honest. I've also thought some sort of pit would be nice to make everything look a bit more dramatic, making it some sort of water source or canalization system to give it some sort of purpose. And of course a spiral staircase and hanging vines in this interior can't be missing. Quickly adding the similar decorations and elements to the next few floors, like the library, bookshelves, lecterns, some statues. It's turning out quite good already. I mean, just look at it. It's starting to feel quite immersive and the atmosphere is completely different than before. I mean, considering the before and after, it is a huge difference. But there's still a couple towers left, so going over to those, we're gonna keep adding the other interior step by step. Since this tower here is connected by an aqueduct, I decided to go with water or liquid related things, which is why I added a little wine cellar and decided on some kind of lab above with a bunch of brewing stands, brewing potions and a place for experiments of all sorts basically. Going through the interiors real quick, I really tried to make the lab feel crowded and cramped, basically overflowing with little details to make it feel like some crazy alchemist is doing experiments in here. And of course, it's all a bit overgrown again to really get the overgrown ruins part across. I mean, foliage just creates such a different vibe. It just makes everything a tiny bit better. For the next tower though, I do want to add some kind of enchanting room. I mean, considering this is supposed to be a fantasy build, it basically is a requirement to at least have something magic related. And since there's 2 more rooms, we'll just add a little ballroom in this one and then some basic interior with a little spring in this one here. And with all the interiors in place, this tower is pretty much done too. So for now, we're gonna take a step away from the interior parts and start taking more care of the outside. So we quickly gotta fix all the leaves and foliage by adjusting it a bit and adding glowberries here and there, as well as azalea leaves. That out of the way, I also want to change the little rocks here around this tower and make them more spiky to give them a more organic feel. And when we're already talking about organics, it's finally time to add some trees with the stamp tool. Since we've already used a couple on our previous starter islands, I do want to use the same kind of trees, just in more different height variations this time. So we're just gonna throw in some larger ones here and there. Overall, I want to have around 2 areas where we have a bunch of trees, and then I mostly want to have the trees spaced out in smaller groups basically. Now, I do feel like that sort of works, and it does make it feel so much more alive already. But we can't just stop at the trees. So while we're at it, I want to add some more different foliage here and there, adjust the forest floor, basically make it more brownish overall, and add some more vegetation in it as well. And we also can't forget the underwater parts, so adding some seagrass and other greens in the water is a must. And with that, we're done with the terrain and forest. Except for one little area, which is this one over here. The pit that we've made while terraforming, for which I have some sort of idea already. Given that we've had some stone henches in our survival starter base, I'm thinking of adding some stone pillars in similar matter around the pit, creating a circle. Sort of like this, but I don't want them standing around alone, so I kind of feel like connecting them by chains. But I feel like doing them in a different color doesn't really match it as well, so we might just make them out of stone again. And in the middle of the pit down here, I thought of adding some sort of platform, creating an arena for people to battle in, surrounded by the terrain, which kind of acts as a grandstand for spectators. And to top it all off, we're gonna use the spot that I've designed a while ago and haven't used yet, and put it over here maybe? Ship placements can be a bit difficult to make it look good from like every angle, but I feel like this works. And the arena turned out quite nice as well, with the platform floating slightly above the water. I mean, who wouldn't want to fight to death down there, right? I mean, might be my favorite spot so far actually. But there's no time to waste, because there's still quite some to do. Adding a couple buildings next to the docks, for example, that have to hold all the cargo and resources that the ships bring to land. We won't make them too complex though, because they're literally just here for the logic, to store the resources aside. Instead of that though, the entrance to the main tower needed some love. And after that, it was interior time again, because we're still missing another 1 to 2 towers. And this tower, I think I want to add a little storage system, because the entire build has to be somewhat practical at least, right? I mean, we're gonna live here otherwise. But for the other floors, it's just decoration time again. And with this tower out of the way, we're pretty much right at the finish line, with not too much left to do. But with each interior is coming more and more together, and it's finally starting to feel alive. This tower aside though, there's a few small things left to do. So we're just doing a couple adjustments on the interior of the main tower here. Add some scaffolding on the outside to emphasize the ruins part. And change the bridge design over here a little, because if we're being honest, it was quite boring. Then I want to quickly add another conduit as our magical water source in the main tower pit. And last but not least, add a couple birds here and there flying in the sky. And with that, we're coming to an end with this build. And I gotta say, it turned out quite nice without as well as with shaders. I mean, with shaders, it could straight up be something from Elden Ring, to be honest. But you guys let me know what you think. Wait, we forgot something. Hey, we can't forget the dragon, right? I mean, you guys would probably slaughter me in the comments if I didn't add him to this build, so we were gonna put him right here. Now that's way better. And with the dragon in place, I hope I didn't forget anything else. Either way, I feel like the build turned out pretty good. I mean, it's quite huge, and in terms of the vibes and atmosphere, it's pretty much what we were going for. A larger, creative version of the survival starter base. Obviously, we didn't copy all the things over, write some stuff out and change some things, but it's just creative freedom. I mean, it wasn't just supposed to be a larger copy of the survival base. Either way, we're coming to an end now with today's video, so you guys let me know if we did beat the starter base inflation with this one, and if we'll ever use this in survival. I honestly doubt it, but it was definitely fun building it, and that's all that matters. So coming to an end, gladly let me know your opinions and thoughts on today's build in the comment section. I appreciate you all a lot for watching for so long, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. You can find a world download in the video description on my Patreon. And a special thanks to my patrons on the screen right now. I appreciate all the support, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one, and until then, have a good one.